audit every penny. For example, even in the preceding election, and could real-time budget tracking, like what has been discussed here, be one of the solutions to reduce wastage or theft or any sort of leakage?
I think one of the problems is that we have as a country is this attempt or tendency to add everything possible to try and fix the problem right now. For example, his ideas are brilliant on what can be done or should be done and so on, but that will also take time. Because there's someone who will say, I need to look at that system that he has developed and see whether that system works sufficiently. But of course, behind the scenes, it's sufficiently for me. So many times we get lost in what we are trying to achieve by adding other things. For example, if we start talking about cartels in the electoral process, and perhaps they exist, then we get lost on the issues that we may think we have on IEBC. So everyone goes off on their own tangent, and we never get to the source or to the objective of our deliberations. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to manage expectations for everybody. For the young man who's a developer, understanding that these things take time to be tested, to be approved, to be accepted, etc., and therefore it cannot happen in this cycle, mm-hmm. realistically speaking. Similarly, we also have to manage expectations of the voter, because what we've discussed already exists. The decisions being made at the polling station, at the constituency and so on are final. But what happens is that everybody gathers at Bomas or whatever location may be next, and the announcement or the pronouncement is done as to who is the winner. But even while that is happening, people have already tabulated and seen the progression of the electioneering period and the voter turnout or returns from the voters. When someone comes out, who did you vote for? There's people who can do those polls and tell you how things are going. So managing expectations of the citizenry by making sure there is repeated information on how the process works. One of our challenges is that is a question of belief. For example, we've had people say that we don't believe in the commissioners. We don't even know their names. We don't know how they've behaved before in terms of how they will put out the expected delivery. However, I'd like to suggest that regardless of what we may believe or not believe in, for example, if someone comes in and says it's raining, and I say I don't believe it's raining, if I go outside, I'm going to get wet because it is in fact raining. So what I'm trying to say is that where we are now is we have the commissioners, they are the people who are mandated to deliver the election, and so we have to work with what we have. What is likely to happen is someone else might go to court tomorrow and decide that I don't like what is happening, and the court might decide, okay, let's hear this case before anything else happens. Where does that throw the election? So there are those issues that we need to, as IEBC or as government or as panelists, to understand that we have to manage expectations.
This is the reality.
Kenyans are very brilliant. They know exactly what should be done, even with the cause as Mogwe was saying, but they don't want to do it. For example, printing ballots is one of the big cost items in the election. Those ballots can simply be printed here, even by government printer, by simply going to the political parties liaison committee, set up a printing ballot committee from the parties participating in the election so they can supervise the process. They know that can be done, but because they don't want to be honest at the end of the day, they assume they don't know that. So the truth of the matter is there is nothing these Kenyans don't know. They are brilliant, they are qualified, okay? But they don't want to do the right thing.
Why?
That's why I like these young people.
Why don't they?
No, because obviously the corruption comes in. You know, corruption is our national religion. Okay?
Prof, so that's very depressing.
That's why, when you have young people like this, thinking the way they are doing, they're anyway in the right direction. But I would like them from today to insist the next election must end at the constituency tallying center. Because when that happens, it will be impossible to rig the election in Nairobi. By the time it arrives in Nairobi, the president will be known the same night that UMP. because they will count the vote of the president first at the constituency. So by the time you go to the MP, you know what the president got in your constituency. You know what he got in the other constituency, because we have had a problem only with one seat, the presidential seat.
All right.
We never had problems with the other.
Victor, let me buttress his point.
Yes, please.
There are these ballot paper that we use for our votes in Kenya has got more security features than the Kenyan currency. The ballot paper, yeah. Because all of us, we don't trust each other. We've got a high appetite for stealing, high appetite for corruption, that the Kenyan ballot has got more security features than the Kenyan currency. As Professor is saying, why can't we do our things in River Road or at the government printer? In other mature democracies,
Mukua,
they take a piece of paper like
come
this and
from
cut it out.
those places.
Sorry?
The brilliance that we are loading here, Kenyans are brilliant. Believe Kenyan criminals are equally as brilliant. No, but we get your point. Olang, please.
There's a point I wanted to touch on because you mentioned the litigation cost. Of
Yes,
IBC.
please. Yes, indeed.
It's normally quite high.
Yes.
And I think my suggestion is if they can explore the option of in-house counsel, where they have in-house lawyers who represent them, as opposed to getting, these big shots that they normally get year in, year out after every presidential election, that charge them billions. And IBC is not a corporate body that is there to make profit. This is an independent commission funded by taxpayers' money. So whenever they're doing these things or recruiting advocates, let them consider that they're paying using taxpayers' money. It's not personal money or corporate money. So that's something they need to consider. Having in-house counsels, because you have this, the AG have that, have in-house counsel, ODPP has that. So that is an option they should consider.
All right, that's great.
I just want to alert them also the way you know whether they are working properly. You see where they are sending the KIMS kit for voter registration. Okay, because the slot are only 700 per polling station. So you see where they are sending majority of these. Are they sending them in the population
strongholds.
centers, strongholds, or in the other? So there is all these parameters. But this is why I'm saying that what we have been lacking here is presidential candidates who actually want the job and they follow the process from the beginning to the end. Because the election is not during the voting day.
Right.
Election is the returning officers you are going to appoint. What method are you using to appoint them? The presiding officer in the polling station. Then the procedures for transmission, which are spelled so well in Section 39 of Elections Act. It's spelled so accurately. Now, you need to make sure from day one that these procedures are followed. Now, we never really had, and not the electoral body is there. I mean, the other one, you saw it, but a candidate for president challenging, for example, a sitting president by someone who actually wants the job and is doing everything to make sure they get the job. That hasn't been a weakness.
All right.
So they have proposed this idea that election has been stolen. There is no election which has been stolen in Kenya. It's just the candidates refused to take power because they refused to follow the process. So that idea, you should remove it. It's nearly impossible to steer the Kenyan election if it is carried out according to procedures, laid down procedure in law, not new procedures.
All right. Now, I want to throw it to you.